Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we are going to start off with the environment crash course. As part of this, there will be no definitions, no long terminologies. We are only going to deal with the most important sections from where generally questions are asked and which are a little confusing for most of the aspirants. So without any further delay, I am going to start off with our series. Our discussion starts from the year 1948. In that year, IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, was formed under the initiative of UNESCO. It is not a part of UN, it has got nothing to do with UN, keep that in mind. Next, the headquarters of IUCN is in Gland, Switzerland. Now, this information is important. Why? I will tell you in my next video, but keep that in mind. Clear? So, IUCN was instrumental in setting up a conference, the UN Conference for Human and Environment in Stockholm in the year 1972. Let us see what that is. The 1972 Conference on Human and Environment. The result of this conference was the setting up of UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. Details of this will be covered in another video. For now, just remember this. UNEP was born out of 1972's Stockholm Conference. Then, after this, 10 years later, in Nairobi, 1982, Stockholm plus 10 was also conducted. Stockholm plus 10 means from 1972 Stockholm plus 10, 1982 Nairobi, Stockholm plus 10. Clear? Now, nothing great came out of this. This was when in 1983, the Brundtland Commission came into the picture. Brundtland Commission was also known as the World Commission on Environment and Development, and in the year 1987 they released a report called Our Common Future, and in that report for the first time the word sustainable development featured. It is this report which later set the tone for the 1992 Rio Earth Summit that took place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So quickly till now, what and all we have studied: 1948 IUCN, 1972 Stockholm Conference, UNCHE, UNEP was the product, 1982 Stockholm plus 10, 1983 Brundtland Commission, 1987 report Our Common Future, Sustainable Development, 1992 Rio Earth Summit or Agenda 21 that took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Now moving on to the most important of all the summits, the Rio Earth Summit. Outcomes of Rio Earth Summit: UNCCD, UNCBD, UNFCCC, Rio Forest Principles, Global Environmental Facility, and UN Commission on Sustainable Development. Under United Nations Conventions on Biological Diversity, you have three major points. One is the sustainable use, the other is the conservation of biological diversity, and the last thing is fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Coming under UNCBD, you have two protocols, Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol. May 22 is celebrated as the International Day of Biodiversity because that is the day when this convention was adopted. USA has not ratified this. Keep that in mind. Okay, now we will see what is Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol separately. The Cartagena Protocol is also known as the Biosafety Protocol. It is to do with the living modified organisms, advanced information agreements, biosafety clearinghouses. Basically, it is nothing but our genetically modified crops. In India, only BT cotton is allowed to be grown as a genetically modified crop. In addition to this, it also talks about the precautionary principle. Precautionary principle simply means if you are not sure about something, don't do it. Just like UPSC. If you are not sure about the question, don't attempt it. USA, South Sudan have not ratified it. Russia, Australia, Argentina, and Chile have also not ratified it. Coming to genetically modified organisms or genetically modified crops, cultivation, US, Brazil, Argentina, Canada, India. That is the ranking. India is 5th in as far as GM cultivation is concerned. Alright, that is all about it. Moving on to Nagoya Protocol. Nagoya Protocol was the outcome of Conference of Parties COP10 and in the year 2010, and it basically talks about access and fair and equitable sharing of benefits, whereby which even the lowest or the local community of that area, they also should get a benefit of that particular product of that area. Like for example, the Kani tribe who give away the Arogya Pacha to a foreign company, that company, whatever profit they make out of Arogya Pacha, a part of the profit should go to the Kani tribe. All right, that is the logic there. Keep that in mind. So the next thing is, after the Nagoya Protocol, the next thing that you have is Aichi biodiversity targets, and after that the Gangwon or the Pyeongchang declaration. Let us see what these two are in the next slides. Under Aichi biodiversity targets, first thing that you have to remember is the year. The target year is 2020, the year that has been set. Next thing is, there are causes for biodiversity loss, how to reduce the pressure on biodiversity, improve the biodiversity, enhance the benefits, enhance the implementation. Let us see now what is Gangwon Declaration. The Gangwon Declaration talks about integrating the local, subnational and national level governments to achieve the Aichi biodiversity targets. 2011 to 20 is known as the decade of biodiversity. Keep that in mind. If the UNCBD was about preserving biodiversity, UNFCCC is about stabilizing greenhouse gases. Remember it, it is to stabilize, not to eliminate, not to remove. It is to stabilize, that means reduce it. And under this, we have to remember one more thing, it is not legally binding, and it has got two important things under it, which is one is Kyoto Protocol and the other is Paris Agreement. All right. Under the Kyoto Protocol, we have three categories of countries: Annex 1, Annex 2 and non-Annex 1 countries. So what are these Annex 1 countries? Annex 1 countries are the rich industrialized nations along with economies in transition. Now these countries have binding targets, that is, they are supposed to achieve a certain level of greenhouse gas emission reduction below the 1990 levels. Alright, 43 countries comes under this. Now, Annex 2, to put it short, is a subset of Annex 1, and non-Annex 1 is just nothing but low developing countries or least developed countries. Alright, just keep that in mind. Let us see now it separately. When you talk about Annex 2 countries, they are a subset of Annex 1, and basically that means that an Annex 1 consists of rich industrialized nations, economies in transition. Annex 2 is a subset of it, and basically that is nothing but OECD countries. That is what you have to keep in mind. And they basically provide what? Financial and technical support to non-Annex countries. That is what they do. Okay, now let us see what is non-Annex countries. So non-Annex countries, basically they are the developing countries, and they need to reduce their emissions only if they receive the necessary technical and financial aid from the rich industrialized nations. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so as you can clearly see, the Kyoto Protocol, which talks about common but differentiated responsibilities, CBDR, that is, it is everybody's responsibility that they reduce it, but the responsibility, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that has to be reduced varies between the rich industrialized nations and the developing economies. Keep that in mind. So the Kyoto Protocol basically gives emphasis to common but differentiated responsibilities, under which binding targets are set for Annex 1 countries, whereby which they will reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 5% below the 1990 levels. USA is not a part of it. Canada has withdrawn from it. These are the important things to remember. There are 6 greenhouse gases under Kyoto Protocol: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, sulfur hexafluoride, HFC and PFC. HFC is the replacement for CFC, which is an ozone depleting substance that is covered under the Montreal Protocol. HFC has been the replacement for it. It is not an ozone depleting substance, but it is a very potent greenhouse gas. More details on it when I'll be taking exclusively a video on protocols and conventions. Clear? Kyoto Protocol, its time period got over in the year 2012. 2012, the concerned people tried to come out with the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, but it is yet to be ratified. Another significant aspect of feature of Kyoto Protocol is the flexibility mechanism that is given to the Annex 1 countries as far as their GHG emission goals are concerned. What are these flexibility mechanisms? Clean development mechanism, joint implementation and emission trading. So let us see now in detail what these are. So basically, under the flexibility mechanism, you have clean development mechanism and joint implementation, and then emission trading. Clean development and joint implementation are basically project-based mechanisms, which means that you start a project in a particular country, and based on the reductions that you achieve, you get the credit for it. In the case of CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, it is between an Annex 1 and a non-Annex country. In the case of joint implementation, it is between two Annex 1 countries. And finally, when you talk about emission trading, it is between rich industrialized nations coming together in a market mechanism and trading for emission reduction certificates. That is what it is. Alright? So remember, keep that in mind. The last and the final convention here in this regard, after we have completed UNCBD, UNFCCC, is UNCCD to combat desertification. Now that is the only legally binding convention in this list. Alright? Keep that in mind. Now the last section of UNFCCC is the Paris Agreement. So two things come under UNFCCC. One is the Kyoto Protocol and the other is the Paris Agreement. Under Paris Agreement, the difference from Kyoto Protocol is that Paris Agreement talks about nationally determined contributions, whereas Kyoto Protocol talked about common but differentiated responsibilities, where binding commitments were given for the Annex 1 countries. Here there are no binding commitments. Another thing is the temperature rise, overall temperature rise in the earth should be kept below 2 degrees Celsius and should be restricted to a maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius. These are the important things to be kept in mind. And this entire agreement will be revised again in the year 2023. Okay? After the 1992 summit in Rio de Janeiro, the next summit took place in Johannesburg, which came to be known as the World Summit on Sustainable Development. Nothing great from it. After that, you had in 2012 the UN Conference on Sustainable Development. This was Rio plus 20, because after Rio Summit, which was in 1992, 20 years after that, the UN Conference on Sustainable Development is taking place. And where did that take place? That took place in Rio de Janeiro. And there they released a report which was titled The Future That We Want. That's it. Okay? Now before going to the summary of this video, let us quickly see what are the confusing topics which can go wrong with, especially with some topics here. Rio Forest Principles, which came out of Rio Earth Summit, led to the Montreal Process. Montreal Process, which is to do with the conservation of boreal forests. India is not a signatory of it. Remember that. Montreal Protocol is to deal with ozone depleting substances. India is a signatory of it, and it is one of the most successful protocols in the world. Clear? Next thing is Global Environmental Facility. Again, a product of the Rio Earth Summit. What are its significant features? You can read it out from that. What is the UPSC question point of view? What is important there is, it was initially a part of the World Bank, but later it moved out. That is what you have to know. Apart from that, Global Environmental Facility is the financial mechanism for UNFCCC, UNCBD, UNCCD, the Minamata Convention, the Stockholm Convention, and the Montreal Protocol. Details about other financing facilities, etc. separately, I will make a video for the same. So if you like my video, do like, share and subscribe. And any suggestions you want to make, please put that in the comment section. Take care.